The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bronx Roots. Michael Preminger, David Hubler, and me, the weak link, Ralph Tyko, with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And this is one of my favorite times of the week. I get to talk to my old Bronxite, mishpacha. I have to say, it's like family, and this brings back a lot in my memory bank, and I'm grateful. So first we'll start with Michael. We'll check in. You were gone last week, and we missed you.
Yes. Well, should I repeat what I just...
Sure.
Sure.
By me, bis Shane. Tell the...
By me, bis Shane, these three women I see, they're always doing Andrew Sisters impressions. They don't sit under the apple tree, they sang. But now everything is so health conscious. It's now don't sit under the organic apple tree. They've actually changed the lyrics.
To protect the innocent.
And
when you go to the store, who knows what's organic? And how is there cross-pollination on that? And who checks it? And is it just an excuse to drive up the prices on produce?
That's a good question. Some of it does say organic, but
right.
When it says it on chocolate chip cookies, I doubt it. I think they've gone too far.
Right. That does it. So, what do you guys want to talk about this week?
Well, I'm looking at something.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, that it's a friend of mine is always he's on Facebook and he always puts down the birthday, so to speak. Like on this day here, he has in 1924. Betty Joan Persky was born in the Bronx. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, I do, but I can't remember her name.
It's Lauren Bacall.
I do know. Lauren Bacall, right.
Well, Lauren Bacall, yeah. Nice Jewish girl.
How did you come to that, David? Wow.
Yeah.
What, you didn't know that? Everybody knows that.
He just said it. I didn't know that, but I have a Lauren Bacall story. In the 50s, my mother would take me to Bloomingdale's with her when she went shopping. There was a great kids restaurant downstairs in Bloomingdale's with clowns and what have you. Vivid memory. But we'd run into Lauren Bacall, who was Humphrey Bogart's wife, if not mistaken, and she had her kid with her, and we were about the same ages. And Lauren Bacall would fight my mother on the racks for good bargains.
No, kid.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that was the Betty Jean Persky coming out in there.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. You could take the kid out of the Bronx.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's funny.
Take the Bronx, and my mother says she was vicious. Like it meant something. My mother, it meant something to her to save X number of dollars, because after all, that's what my mother would say. After all.
That's great. That's great. I like that too. After all, she was not supposed, from what I've heard, like I know. I'm not being facetious, that she was not a nice lady, Miss Persky.
She wasn't. If she wanted something and you wanted something, she wasn't. And I wonder how that transcends into her.
Well, maybe if you would just put your lips together and blow.
Hey, there you go.
It'll go away.
There you go. Good one.
I like that.
Well, I have a good story too.
We had a hectic week in politics. Maybe maybe we should talk about that a little bit.
No, we don't want to do that.
Could David said he has a good story.
Yeah, I have a good story. Like the comic said, I spent a week in Cleveland one night. This actually happened to me in Cleveland one night.
That's right.
And, they always talk about people when there are delays and flight delays and things like that, how angry people get and they storm the desk and everything. Well, flying home the other night, I experienced the very same thing. And we were supposed to leave about 4:40 in the afternoon and get into National Airport about close to 6 o'clock. It's only a 50-minute flight. It's nothing. But as the time approached, the board, they kept changing it. It was like one of these tote boards. They kept adding an hour or a half hour. And by about 6:30, 7 o'clock, they finally admitted, well, it hasn't left Washington yet, to come back to Cleveland and then go back to Washington. So we're sitting and waiting, and all the excuses were, there was weather. I mean, it was before the hurricane. There was no hurricane inside. So anyway, by about 7:30, the woman at the desk says, okay, she said, we don't know when this plane is going to get here, but if you want, we can switch you over to a United Airlines flight that is leaving at just about 8 o'clock, and you'll get in about 9:30. All right, so there are about 14 of us. It was one of these small Embraer Brazilian-made planes, so it can't take too many people anyway. So she reboards us with boarding passes and stuff, and this whole group of us, about 14, 15 of us, trudge over, because obviously they're not, American Airlines and United Airlines, for some reason, are not contiguous. So we walk all the way over there, and sure enough, they take our things, okay, we're going to board. Same thing happens. 7:40 comes, they'll board, no boarding. 8 o'clock, no boarding. So, and I know a lot of people have gone through this, but they don't all experience the same kind of wackiness that we did. So by about,
put it into perspective, your flight was X number of hours. Once you're up,
it wasn't. Yeah, it was 50 minutes.
50
gate to gate.
Not even an
50
hour.
minutes. Not even an hour. No. And going, I'm sure, from west to east, it was less than the 50 minutes that we spent in the air going to Cleveland. So anyway, all right, finally they find a plane, and they find a couple of pilots hanging around the bar down there, I guess. And they found, and no, they were really, at one point they said, we have to find pilots who can fly, So, and then they couldn't find a flight attendant, because they kept asking for a stewardess, I guess, and there was no stewardess.
No, she wouldn't respond.
No. So anyway, by about 9 o'clock, 9:30, the airport begins to close down. And there's nothing more depressing to be in one of these airport terminals when there's nothing around. I mean, the stuff closing, the gate, it's dreary and dull, and it's like a fantasy world where nothing happens. Fast forward to about 10:30. And okay, we're going to board now. Everybody's, all 15 to 14 of us are pretty excited. In the meantime, what has happened is that I'm sitting next to this woman, and she was in great mental state because she told me her son's girlfriend had called to let her know that the son was in an intensive care unit in the hospital.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and she said to me, it's a good thing I was in Cleveland because I live in Washington State, and I was visiting friends. It's a lot easier to get to Washington from Cleveland, a lot faster. But anyway, she was very, very calm and patient, and so we've been talking, and one guy gets up, and because the airport is closing, they've stacked about 20 of these wheelchairs together, just outside our own direct area. So this one guy gets in a wheelchair, and he starts wheeling himself around because he has nothing else to do. And I said to the woman, I said, if this goes on any longer, we can have wheelchair races here because there's not going to be anybody in the terminal. And there were plenty of wheelchairs. She says, that's a great idea. She says, will you film me And so, and so I said, sure. She gives me her cell phone camera and shows me how to operate it, and she gets into a wheelchair. And they get together, and I say, ready, set, go. And the two of them begin to wheel furiously down the corridor. See?
Oh,
and they go,
that is hysterical.
Yeah, and they go all a fair ways down, and then they turn around and come back, and she loses. And she said, I really could have beaten him. I said, like a true track coach, I said, the problem was you started out too fast. You have to pace yourself for these.
And
so,
the nice thing, it took her mind off of her situation.
Yeah, but I mean, most people would not be, have one mindset at that particular time. Anyway, so they finally, so we get on a plane, and because it's those small planes, you can't just put your luggage in the overhead compartment. They take it from you right as you board the plane, right down the gangplank area there, and they put it in below so they take everybody's bags, and we get on the plane, and there are people on the plane that's come in from somewhere, I don't know, and so we all take our seats, and Zippo. Now it's pitch dark. I don't like to fly in the dark. I always think that it's better for the pilots to be able to see where we're going. But anyway, so we trundle on down out of the gate and down the runway. And because we're one of these smaller planes, we don't go onto the regular runway. We have to go onto a separate runway, and it's all the way at the other side of the airport. So we finally get there, and if you've flown, as we all have, they stop at the end of the runway, and they wait for the tower to say, okay, go.
Right.
Tower says there's a ground hold in Washington, so we're not going at all. So we're going back to the terminal, the pilot says. So we go back to the terminal, and at that point he says, if you want, you can get off and go home, do whatever you want, but we're gonna go eventually. So a couple of people got off the plane, and I guess they got their bags and stuff. And then we go, all right, everybody back, we're going. We get back on the plane. This is number 2 now, second time. All the way back out to the airport, stop, wait for the go sign, no go. Another hold has been put on, ground hold has been put on DCA, that's the letters for National Airport.
I'd be in the institution by now.
I'm telling you, yeah. Now, we go back. We go back a second time, and now there was a young woman seated beside me, and she spent the whole time on the cell phone talking to her girlfriends, which was really annoying because she was right next to me. But as luck would have it, she says, I'd rather sleep in my own bed than on the plane. So the second time, they tell us you have to get off and you have to take your bags with us. Now everybody figures that's it for the night, So we get off the plane and the guy's there and he's handing us our luggage, and this woman who was sitting next to me, she disappears. So that's fine. I don't really care that she's not coming back. So we're sitting there now in the terminal, and it's probably about 12:30, 1:45 in the morning. And we've all decided, with our bags here, we're not going anywhere. But, as luck would have it, the hold is lifted again in Washington. Now, here's the funny part. This is the funny part. The woman at the gate, who's just at the, has that little desk there just before you start the board. So, this woman must have been in the service somehow, and probably was a sergeant, because now she says, all right, we're going to board again, and we've got our bags ready to go. She says, all those in group 1.
Oh, no.
And we said, what do you mean group 1? There's 17 of us. We want to get on the plane and go home.
Oh, that is wonderful.
So she concedes a bit. She says, group 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
This is true.
And this is the third time you're
going. This is the third time, yes. The third time, and we get on the plane, trundle out to the runway, and this time, bingo, we take off, finally. And surprisingly enough, because over the years, I've become a much better flyer than I used to be. I really used to hate it. And I don't like being in a small plane when the weather's terrible.
Yes,
but it turned out to be, I know. If you're going to be in a storm or something like that, you want to be in one of these big planes, so at least you have a fighting chance of making it. So,
and at least making the newspapers if you don't.
Yeah, I know, but the trouble is the small planes don't make the newspapers at all.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So anyway, it turned out to be a fairly smooth flight, and we landed. And so instead of getting home around 6 p.m., I got home 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
But when that woman says, Group 1... That's the only time we all nearly rioted and ran past her.
I was going to say, if there was a movie, she said Group 1 and get hit in the face with a pie.
I'm telling you, yeah. It was like, what was the movie that they made, Airport, it was just like that. The woman, Group 1 and 2.
That is so funny.
So that's my week in Cleveland one night.
Boy, what patience to go back and forth and oh my God.
Yeah. But what choice did you have? There's nothing. They closed down. Even the Starbucks was closed, and there was nothing there but chairs. I had no connection to anybody in Cleveland. I had taken there's a subway that takes you out and back from the city center to the airport and back, and I had taken it there. Now, I didn't even know if it was still running, but the point was there was nothing. We were all prepared to sit there till 8:30 the next morning when the first flight would go out.
To sit in the airport all night and thinking, how long would it take you if you'd had driven?
Well, it's about a 6-hour drive.
Oh, okay. So that,
and
it's up to 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no train service between Cleveland and D.C. Interestingly enough, you would have to go to Pittsburgh. For some reason, there is service. Well, Pittsburgh and Cleveland are pretty close together, but it was. And the weather there was fine. It was just one of these crazy coincidences, But
that is some story.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it reminded me of? You talking about airports when that woman said Group 2 or whatever. It's the Seinfeld bit where they had a car reserved.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Is that a classic? Well, we had reservations. We know you did, but we don't have any car. I think you missed the point on reservations.
Yes. And then the woman at the counter says, "Well, you don't know what a reservation." And he says, "I think I do." And I'm sure so much of that stuff must have been written based on experience. I can't believe you sit and make all that stuff up.
We've talked about this, that show and Larry David's new show, comparatively new show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Just incredible humor, just unabashed, funny. That's the best way of saying it.
It takes a certain kind of sense of humor to fall into his humor. I mean, I'm a total fan. I think it's great stuff. But I've known people who say, it's not very funny, because they're so inured to the, a joke here, 2 lines, another joke, 2 lines, and then what do they call that? Sweetening when they do the
exactly.
A topper. I think they call it.
Well, the sweetening is when they add in the laughter track.
Oh, I get it. That you don't like to hear because that almost tells you what's funny.
But that's the idea, yeah.
Kind of insulting.
But Mike knows a lot more about that than I do, but I just thought this was a funny story. I really had to share it.
Oh,
it's a good one.
No, that is a great story. That is.
You mentioned something in the story about the dankness of a terminal after closing time, after traditional closing time. And when I was in the Air Force stationed at Travis in Northern California, Travis was they sent people to and from Vietnam through Travis. And it was open all night, and as someone who worked swing shift and had very little money at the time, what I would do is go down to the terminal. They called it the terminal, in which, for anybody who flies, I think it was a George Carlin line, you don't like to hear terminal.
That's right.
But I had a big old Chevy, and I would gather up guys coming back from Vietnam and take them to the airport in San Francisco and charge them the same as a bus ride would be. So I'd have 3 or 4 guys go into San Francisco, and there was a place where people would line up to go to Travis from San Francisco at the airport, and I would be like a cab that wasn't a cab. I wore my costume so people could recognize me as being in the Air Force, and I'd pick up guys and bring them back to Travis. And
You were Uber before there was Uber.
Yeah, right.
I was, and but there were cabs, and they didn't like me very much for that. But I did it one night a week for spending money Thursday nights. And I'd hang at the terminal, and one day I'm hanging at the terminal, and who's there but walking through the terminal? You walk if you almost for recreation to see what's going on. I run into Joey frickin' Bishop. In the terminal, I said, Mr. Bishop, I'm a big fan, son of a gun, this, that, and the other thing. And he was very nervous. I said, yeah, what are you doing here? He says, I'm going off on a UFO flight somewhere. I don't remember where. It was Thailand or Vietnam. And I've never done this before, and I'm nervous. And I walked around the terminal with him for a little while, and we just talked. He goes, I'm not very talkative. I'm really pissed. I had to do this. I had to wait for this plane. And it was one of those things right in the middle of the Vietnam War where he was going over on some UFO tour.
USO, yeah.
USO.
The UFOs didn't land at Travis. They landed in Roswell.
You'd be surprised.
I would have been nervous about that myself.
Yeah, right.
UFO tour.
People don't come back from a UFO tour.
No, but that's true. That's true. Sometimes they tour us. Hey, listen, presidents. We've had Jimmy Carter believed in stuff, extraterrestrial stuff. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he have a rabbit going on or some such stuff?
Well, there's a theory that the universe is so vast that it's virtually impossible for this planet to be the only one that is inhabited. That the odds are just too astronomical for that to be true. Which makes sense in a way, doesn't it?
When the Roswell thing was going on.
Yeah, you are.
What did he say?
Mike?
But I think I keep getting phone calls from some of these other planets.
Oh, right.
The phone rings, it rings once, boom, that's it. I go,
yeah.
Hi, you have the wrong planet, sorry. Oh, that would be great. Hi, is this Earth? No, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I was calling Venus. I'm sorry. Well, that's all right. Did I wake you? It's all right. All right. I love talking.
You mentioned that the odds would be astronomical if there weren't some planet with
Well, that's what they say. That's right. The odds are there has to be. It's too impossible for the millions and millions of stars and the millions and millions of solar systems and the millions and millions of planets in those solar systems for this to be the only one that's inhabited. And it makes sense. It doesn't make it true, but it makes sense.
It makes sense.
No, but there have been a lot of sightings and films of sightings that are absolutely unexplainable. So who knows?
I had an interview with a guy who had written a book, when I was doing those VOA book reviews, and he came in with his attorney, and he swore up and down that he had been abducted by aliens, and it was a very familiar pattern where you don't remember. You're riding along on a highway somewhere, and you see this big bright light, and all of a sudden, something happens, and it's like 5 months later, and you're on the same road doing the same thing, and you don't know what happened in those intervening 5 months. So
that happened to me in Bakersfield. I was abducted, and I was there.
There's a comedy venue in Bakersfield. I'm sure you know that one of the big country western stars, Buck Owens, owns it or something. But Bakersfield is vast. It's horrible. Bakersfield, Fresno gets in the valley.
But Fresno State beat UCLA, beat them bad last night. So I guess there are people there.
Yeah.
In Fresno. How's the weather back east right now, David?
Oh, it's just cloudy. We've avoided the worst of it. I don't think because it's heading inland now, and parts of Virginia along the coast down there in Norfolk. They're the ones who got hit a bit. But what shocked me so much was the U.S. Navy just pulled out. They sent all their ships out to sea. I mean, don't these ships get into storms someplace? No, the storm is coming. The storm is coming. Okay, all of you ships, get the hell out of here.
Oh, that's interesting.
They did. There was 30-some-odd ships.
Oh.
And they started with Group 1, and then they went to Group 2.
Group 1 again.
Yes. That's how they got the ships out so fast. Group 1.
See, everything's connected.
There are only 14 of you.
But they really did. And what does that say to the people who are stuck there? If the Navy can't, the Navy can't batten the hatches and, whatever other hatches they do and what batten is anyway. So, yeah.
Well, I've been watching CNN a lot through all this. They have something called the Cajun Navy, where a group of folk who are with small little boats and what have you, and band together, and they rescue people. And these guys are doing a hell of a job, and but there's still, last I heard, like 17 casualties.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting point. I was listening to the radio coming home this morning, and they're talking to these county officials. Well, we're all getting together and we're going to have a plan. We're going to put together a plan. Well, the damn hurricane has already hit them. Why are they waiting? I mean, you have to plan means planning ahead. It doesn't mean you plan after the fact for what you just experienced. You plan for the future. Why didn't they? How come they had no emergency plans in effect, or even on paper? Something. They're being inundated by waves and water and all that, and now they're going to have to put together a plan. So
yeah.
My cousin's son, who's about 50, but lives in Washington, D.C. area, send something on Facebook on the lighter side of all of this. It showed a reporter and he's kind of bent over because he's saying the winds are just horrible. It's hard to stand up. And behind him, about 20 feet behind him, are two kids just casually walking down the line. And it's like, are you kidding? It was if this was a sketch on TV, that's very funny. Here's the guy, and has the hood over his head, and he's, oh boy, this is murder. This is the toughest time I've ever had reporting. And here are these two guys in shower sandals, just walking down the street.
And the camera pans back, and there's this big fan like they use in the movie.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
It's all green screen, right? Yeah.
Right.
I heard about that. I haven't seen it. I did hear about that. I was going to look for it. Actually, yeah. I mean, one question I've always had about this stuff, and my son I finally asked him about it. It seems to me that the predictions are far worse than anything that ever happens, and that these guys come on the weather and women come on the weather channel, and they it's going to be 150 feet high, and you're going to see the arc float by, and it's just awful. It's Armageddon, and I said, Rob, do these guys really hype these approaching storms like that just to draw audience, to get high ratings? And he said, no, actually, he says it's just the opposite. He said, these guys and women, he said, they don't want to be attached to something that they're predicting is worse than what actually happens, because that ruins their reputation. So if anything, they underplay it, so that they're not, they're not accused of hype, which I thought they were doing. So that I thought that was an interesting remark.
That is interesting.
I never would have realized that. I just think they come on the air and will we have a blizzard? Tune in at 11, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well.
Well, this is an anomaly because it goes so slowly.
Yeah.
3 miles an hour. So, and it's just hanging over the area.
Right, and it's dumping water, and it's the rivers are going to crest in a couple of days, and that whole area is filled. It's that Cape Fear area, which now has earned its name. It's Cape Fear, and there's a couple of other rivers and lots of streams that all feed into it. And they're already been inundated, but as the storm keeps sitting there a little bit further west, all that water's got to go someplace. And they're saying, they're not really out of it yet because of the high tides have come and gone pretty much, but all that water that's inland and all the rain that's coming down is going to be pushing back toward the sea, toward the coast. And lots of mudslides. That's another thing they're expecting. Lots of mudslides.
Wow.
So it's
that's
well. Let's just hope Halliburton doesn't get the job to clean it all up. All right. Can I ask? I know I jokingly ask about politics a little bit. Are the walls really closing in, David?
Closing in?
On Trump.
I don't know.
See that imminent now that Manafort is turning?
Well, we don't know what he's going to say. I mean, the only thing I know for sure is that the one job in government I would love to have is to be Mueller's spokesperson. Because every time they ask him anything, no comment. They don't. That's all he ever says. No comment. I don't even know if he knows Mueller himself. It's just no comment. Spokesman for Robert Mueller said no comment. That's all it is. And I'm sure he gets a six-figure job.
Release anything until after the election.
No, that's right. Well, I don't know about that. Probably not. I don't think he is concerned too much about the midterms. I think this is a guy who has done this before, and he's very methodical, and unless you're a real die-in-the-wood Republican, you believe this guy really is an honest, and straight shooter, which he has always had a reputation of being. And what the White House doesn't tell you is that he's been a lifelong Republican. That doesn't get out there very much. He just keeps attacking him for what he's doing, the fake news, and so Mueller has been a Republican, and so are all the other main people in this probe, from the FBI director to Sessions, Sessions and several others that are high-ranking officials who are involved in these proceedings. They're all Republicans. The Congress hasn't done anything, so we'll see. But I don't think it's a question of pushing something out by a particular deadline. We'll have to see. Nobody really knows except Mueller.
And the shadow, of course.
Yeah, and the shadow. Yeah.
Shadow knows.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. This is a treat for me having you on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Bronx Roots, David Hubler, Michael Preminger, me, the weak link of it all, Ralph Tyko. We'll be back next week. Stay with
No, I won't be here next week. No.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, no?
That's right.
No.
Heads up.
I'm heading for Canada on Wednesday.
Have a good
I've had
season.
it. I've had it.
I'm
mad as hell and I can't take anymore.
What'd you say off the air? It's a one-way trip.
Yeah, I got one-way tickets. No, we'll be back.
Well, you'd be welcome back anytime,
Okay, it's just a 1 week.
The letter written.
Yeah.
So we'll skip next week, huh?
Yeah, I will.
We will. We'll be back in 2. How about
right.
that?
Okay, got you.
Okay.
All right.
And then I'm...
Thank you, guys. Be well.
Okay, take care.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for listening, everybody. Adios.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast. Now, here's your host, Tony D'Angelo.
And a very good afternoon to you wherever you may be. It's afternoon here on the East Coast, and I'm your host, Tony D'Angelo. And I have for you here today, friends and fans of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, a rain delay edition. We work hard. Everybody on this network works hard to do these broadcasts because everybody on this network wants to be a professional, is a professional, and wants to do right. I aspire to that, and I'm in no different straits in wanting to do right, even though I may mess up from time to time, as you know. But every once in a while, I like to have a little fun. And in this rain delay edition, what I'd like to do is look at a date in history and go back and kind of give you a flavor for what was taking place at that point in time with the music, with the news, with the events, with the commercials, and we'll have a little bit of fun looking back. The date in history I have pulled for you is March 15th, 1972. Was a particularly odd time or a wild time in United States history. Richard Nixon was the president. At that point, we hadn't really heard about Watergate to a great degree. We were hearing little rumbles here and there. Vietnam was still an issue. Northern Ireland was an issue. And there were a number of other issues which we will get through in our Nostalgia News segment. But anyway, music at that time, man, that was never an issue. And one of the things hitting the charts at that point was this particular piece from T-Rex talking about getting it on. Number 10 on the WABC survey of that week. Get it on, baby. We'll be right back right after this.
have fun where you used to have none. Make your life complete. Take the driver's seat. Call the Automobile Club of America.
Not on a diet, try it.
People who've heard of it, love it.
You are not on a diet, try it.
Diet like cola. Everybody likes it. Diet like cola. Everybody likes it. And you know why?
The taste of you are my lemon, my only lemon. You smell so happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. To the Gap now, get to the Gap. We got 4 tons of Levi's waiting for you. At the Gap now, falling to the Gap. It's the world's greatest selection. It's true. At the Gap now, falling to the Gap. Whatever your shape, sex or size, we got your favorite Levi's jeans.
And so gasoline's at HGA. A couple of tanks can send you on your way. 'Cause when you put your foot down, you don't want to put down. That's what our HGA is all about. That's what our HGA is all about. National Heinz is what ketchup tastes like. Plop, 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 plop. Heinz is what ketchup tastes like. Heinz is what ketchup tastes like.
An American crayon, just like I am. You're an American crayon, just like me, just like me.
Hold it. You cut off one lock of his hair, and I'll melt your scissors.
Ooh, I love it all, just as long as you use crayon, good and clean.
Well, as a sample of some of the radio commercials playing in 1972 and previously been on before this segment, I'd like to tell you what was happening in history on that date in reading my New York Times time machine. George Wallace was planning a run for president at that point. He would later be wounded in an assassination attempt. Harold Janine of IT&T denied helping the Republican Party after a little bit of insider trading and some communications issues. We know what happened to that in history. Tiffany was unveiling a hand-painted ladybug for $17.50. Platform shoes were on sale at Wallach's for $45. You needed them to go to the disco. Violence continued in Ireland. 2 people were killed in a bombing. Willoughby Peerless, an old-time electronics retailer, was selling a 35mm camera for the princely sum of $19.95. Jeff Feinholt starred in Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway. Gary Gentry helped the Mets beat the Pirates in a 9-4 exhibition game in Bradenton, Florida. Gussie Busch of the St. Louis Cardinals complained about the state of baseball, and he said if the players want to strike, let them, because there won't be any baseball. We can't make money owning teams. And we know what happened shortly after that. In the movies, The Godfather debuted on the screen. The best scene in that movie, as far as I'm concerned, is Leave the Gun and Take the Cannolis, and Elizabeth Taylor starred with Susanna York and Michael Caine in X, Y, and Z. A great time in many, many, many respects, and we'll be right back to you right after this.
If love's what you like, grab a Canada Dry ginger ale and a friend. Find someone to share your love. Find someone and dare to love. Find someone to share your love. Find someone and dare to love. Ginger ale tastes like love. Canada Dry ginger ale. Ginger ale tastes like love. Canada Dry. Find someone and share it. Tastes like love. Love is all, love just one. Don't miss love, you'll miss the fun.
All of the baseball fans on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network would be terribly disappointed if I did not make the announcement of the birthdays of major leaguers of the past and occasionally of the present. So today, which is September 15th, we have a number of birthdays. Former Met pitcher Madman John Pacella blows out 62 candles today. Former Yankee hurler Dave Pagan blows out 69 candles. Was up for a little bit in the 1970s. Former Giant hurler Don Carruthers is 69 today. He completed 11 games, folks, more than some people complete in entire careers. And Gaylord Perry of the Hall of Fame, who's wetting up the candles on his cake, is 80 today. Gaylord completed, say that 5 times fast, a mere 303 games. Happy birthday to everybody who has a birthday today, and we'll be right back right after this. Coming up the charts on March 15th, 1972 on the WABC survey was The Family of Man by Three Dog Night. Did you know that Jerry Quarry, the boxer, had retired from boxing in 1972, had actually worked security for Three Dog Night, an Australian group, for a little while? Well, we hope you've enjoyed this little time tunnel version into the past. Special thanks to T-Rex, Richard Nixon, Harold Janine, Canada Dry Ginger Ale, and Three Dog Night. We'll be back to you next week with another rain delay, as Dan Ingram would say on WABC Kayuska Day. We'll see you soon. God bless everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.
This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.